Just gorgeous.
So today we are going to India with this savory pie. We are making the Bombay chicken curry pie. Now to get started, as always, we want to make sure that we prepare everything. And I've already gone ahead and made my rough puff pastry. It is in the fridge now, chilling and getting ready for tomorrow. And while that's doing its rest, we are going to get on to making the filling. Now, I do like to make this filling a day ahead of time. I find that we get a lot more flavor into the filling if we do that, and just gives a lot of time for all those flavors to infuse. So I've mise en place all of our ingredients so we can get started. And the first thing that we're going to do is toast our flour. Now today I'm using some rice flour, and the reason that we are toasting the flour is it's going to give a nice roasted flavor to our curry. And in a lot of curry dishes, they will actually toast the rice itself and then grind it in a spice grinder. But just to save time, I'm just using some rice flour that was already ground or milled into a flour, and I'm just toasting it over a medium heat in my saucepan, just until we start to get some color. Now this happens pretty quickly, so you want to continuously be stirring that flour until it turns into like a nice golden sand color, like a beige kind of color. Okay, so my flour has changed color now. It's like a beige color. I'm gonna pop this back into my bowl. So now that that's toasted, I'm gonna be using a small food processor, and we're gonna be blending up our onion, tomato, and our minced garlic and ginger all together. Now in our saucepan that we just used earlier, we're going to be adding our fat. So I'm actually just going to use some coconut oil today, or you can use a neutral flavored vegetable oil. And we just want to melt that down. So typically in Indian cuisine, you would use ghee. So this is a nice alternative using the coconut oil. I am using a unscented coconut oil, but you could use the one with the raw one, which has more of a coconutty flavor if you enjoy that. So once that oil is melted and your pan is nice and warm, we're gonna start frying off our tomato, onion, garlic, and ginger that we just pureed. And I like to also add at this stage a good pinch of salt, and also a little pepper too. So we're gonna cook this off until most of that liquid from the tomatoes and the onions has evaporated. So this takes about 10 minutes. So we've been cooking our tomato and onion for about 10-15 minutes, and it's become a lot darker, exactly what we're looking for. And you do want to ensure, especially towards the end, that you're constantly stirring. Now we're going to go in with our curry powder, and I'm just going to cook that just for a few moments, just to sort of toast some of those spices, get them nice and aromatic. Okay, so after a couple of minutes, we're going to add back our toasted flour that we made, and just give that a good mix. And I've got this on a pretty low heat at the moment. So we just want to incorporate that flour. And as soon as it's mixed in, we're going to slowly start adding our vegan chicken stock. So just a very small amount at a time. And this is going to slowly start thickening our sauce. And I just want to bring that sauce up to a simmer, get it nice and thick. Now that it's started simmering, we can add our vegetables, and I'm just using some frozen vegetables. And these ones are just a mixture of carrot, beans, corn, and peas. So it just makes it really easy. And I also have some potatoes, which I cooked earlier. And you just want to cook them to fork tender, or just before they're really soft. We still want to have some body to them. I'm going to add those as well. And of course, our vegan seitan chicken, which we shredded. And I'm going to add that now as well. It looks so authentic, it's crazy. And our last ingredient is our coconut cream. This is going to give us that beautiful creamy texture to our chicken curry, and also add a touch of sweetness too. It's looking so lovely and rich. So let's bring this up to a simmer, and we want to just make sure that we have a good curry sauce. And if you're somebody who likes to add a little bit of heat, you can add some chili powder, or I've got some flaked chili here, some chili flakes. Get a little bit of a kick in there. So our curry has thickened up nicely. Now we're going to do a little bit of a taste test, just make sure that we have enough seasoning in there and we're happy with the flavor. You can really taste that chicken flavor, and then we have all the flavors from the curry spice and the creaminess from the coconut. Doesn't need any salt, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to transfer into a container now, just let it cool down for a little bit before we put it into the fridge, and we're going to let this rest in the fridge overnight before we put it into our pies. So now we can start final shaping our pies. So to do that, I've already prepared my rough puff pastry the day ahead of time, and this is really important because it allows the pastry gluten to completely relax and less likely to shrink or retract once we roll it out and bake it. So I've just put this out of the fridge. It's been sitting on my bench for about 10 minutes, just so it's a bit easier to roll out and we don't crack that vegan butter. So I'm just going to take that cling wrap off and get some flour going on it so it won't stick on my bench. So as always, to find the right way of the pastry, like a book in front of us, we have the closed seam on the left and the open on the right. Now we want to extend the width of this dough to just over, to about 30 centimeters essentially. So we want to widen it. So I'm going to get my rolling pin. So we want to widen this to about 30 centimeters. So I'm just going to turn it around for now, and we're going to get it started. So just tapping it with our rolling pin. Okay, now we want to roll this to about 30 centimeters. Let's get our ruler so we can get an idea. Okay. And just always making sure that our dough is not sticking. If you're working on a very hot day and you find that your dough is getting too soft, too warm, pop it straight back into the fridge for about 10 minutes, and then you can start working with it again. It's very important that we control our temperature when we're working with laminated doughs. Yep, so that's looking good. Perfect. So putting it back in front of us, we have our closed seam on the left, open seam on the right. So now that we have the width that we're looking for, we need to get the thickness that we're looking for. And we're looking for a 3mm thickness. And I'm using some rolling guides today just to help me get that thickness a lot more easily. So we can put those on the side of our dough and then roll over the top with our rolling pin. So I want to do this nice and gently to begin with, and always making sure that we have plenty of flour underneath so it's not sticking, okay? Now, if your bench is quite small, you can always work with half of the dough or just cut it in half. Okay, so now we have it at the 3mm thickness. I'm just putting some flour down, like a light dusting of our flour. And I'm going to carefully roll our dough up onto the rolling pin. And I'm just going to get some cling wrap down. We're going to wrap this up so it doesn't dry out and transfer this to the fridge for 20 minutes. So it's time for our chicken pies. We're going to put them in our pie tins now. Now with the pie tins, I actually purchased these ones online, just on Amazon, and these ones are actually quite large. I will give you the size. So the size that I'm using is, so the base is 8 centimeters by 4 centimeters high, and the top is 12 centimeters. So these are kind of like a large pie, a large individual pie. But essentially with this recipe, you can do any size that you like, whether you want to do a canapé size, a medium, or a large like I'm using today, okay? You can get them in the tins also. So here's another example of a pie tin, okay? Just make sure with these ones that you grease and flour them, and then just tap the flour out just so they release easily. Okay, so now we can get started shaping. I'm just going to pop down a little bit of flour on my bench. Now to make sure that you get the right size, I like to get myself a ruler and start from the edge on the base and then work my way around, and I can see that this is going to be, the diameter is 16 centimeters. And I just so happen to have a 16 centimeter ring mold, so I'm going to use that to help cut my base. So we're going to unravel this, and I'm just going to do just a couple at a time, just so we keep that pastry nice and cold. So I'm going to cut 1 and 2, and then taking my little pie tin, if it's sticking to your fingers, you can just put a little bit of the flour. And we want to make sure that we get all the way up the sides and have just like a little bit of an overhang. If you want to get into the corners, you can also take a little scrap of your dough, if you've got kind of longish nails, and kind of get right into those corners. And let's do the other one. Okay, I'm just going to roll that up for now just to keep it nice and chilled. Now we're going to go in with our chicken curry, and again, depending on the size of pie that you're doing, which when I tested it before, it was kind of like a heaped half cup. Okay, now the lid for these, just going to roll our dough out a little bit more, and I'm going to use my pie tin as a guide and a pizza cutter. So see, I've just popped it upside down, and we're going to go around the edge. Okay, and I've got my vegan egg wash here, and I'm just going to put a little bit, just make sure we press those edges down. Now with our fork, we're going to go around the edges, just joining the 2 pieces of dough. So I'm going to put these 2 onto a tray and pop them in the freezer while we continue on with the rest. We just want to keep that dough very nice and chilled. Okay, so I'm going to put my last pies into the freezer, and we're going to leave them in there for about 15 minutes to firm up and for that dough to relax. So let's check out our pies. They've been in for about 35 minutes. I did turn the oven temperature down towards the end. Wow, look at that beautiful golden color. They look fabulous. All right, we're gonna set these aside to cool down now. So our vegan chicken curry pies have just come out of the oven, and don't they look super authentic? Oh my goodness. It looks like I've just come back from the bakery. Now I've got one here that I want to cut into, so I'm gonna go grab myself a plate. All right guys, let's cut into this pie. Let's check it out. Doesn't it look gorgeous? We've got all that beautiful crispy pastry. And it's nice and crisp all the way around, which is just perfect. Wow, look at that. We've got beautiful vegan chicken inside, and you can see all that flakiness, crispiness of the pastry, that texture of the chicken, it's just crazy. All that shredded chicken, beautiful and juicy. We've got that beautiful crispy crust. Just gorgeous.